this Yeti mic, so I don't know if it sounds good.
It sounds perfect, man. It
Dope.
sounds perfect. Um, I just gotta. It's so weird. Every time I come into here to go Facebook Live, it says that it's live, but
And then it's not.
then on Zoom it says it's not live, and then I have to like constantly go back and forth between the. Okay, I think we should be good. We're live.
Dope.
Awesome. Got the one and only Ryan Magin here today to we'll talk about content, we'll talk about all that stuff, but I also want to get personal on this podcast because I love just knowing the patterns of what builds an entrepreneur, what builds their success, how they can serve the world, and how they essentially were able to get to that point where through their service they were able to also create success. So got a ton of questions about video so that you can help people out, but I also have a ton of personal questions that we can get into. But for the people who I guess don't know who Ryan Magin actually is, why don't we start there?
Got it.
I love to know about the rags to riches story and how someone came through the online world and entrepreneurship and how they got to where they're at. So I'll leave the ball in your court and you can start from there.
Yeah, I mean, well, a lot of people know me as of 2 years ago, which is from TikTok. That's like the Ryan that is today. But I've been making money on the internet, and I know I've known you for a long time as well. I mean, I've been making money online for over 10 years, maybe even 12 or 13 at this point. I started back when I'm 40 years old now. So when I was 25, 26, I was a retail sales employee at Lowe's, selling doors and windows. I quit my job at Lowe's to race BMX professionally full time. Realized really quickly that BMX wasn't that lucrative when you're not the top professional. I was in that weird, like, I'm too good to be amateur, but not good enough to be the number one pro. So that means that I was living on like $2,000, $1,500 a month. So I actually met a mutual friend of ours, somebody, Elliot Hulse.
Yep.
He happened to live in my hometown, and he had these workout camps every Saturday, and I just started going to them. Ended up becoming friends with Elliot, and he introduced me to a book called The 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and I ended up reading that book and I'm gonna get stupid rich making a DVD teaching BMXers how to get fast on their bikes. So I did. My dad helped me because my dad is a videographer and a cinematographer, so he was able to help me put together a DVD. I started selling that through like out of my backpack at bike races, and nobody was buying it, or at least not that I wanted. So I was like, I need to make a website. And I taught myself coding, made a website, horribly ugly. But I started making a little bit of money because back then nobody was doing this. So it was but short-lived. I didn't have any traffic coming to my website, and I had to figure that out. So the next step was I just copied what Elliot Hulse was doing, and he was making videos. So I started making videos teaching BMXers how to get faster and be better BMX racers. And I was able to do that for around 2 or 3 years, and just traveled, kind of self-funded my BMX career through a $20 DVD. And, eventually it did get to the point where I had to make the decision to quit because I was just burning myself out. Everything was about BMX. Like, I was training people, I was racing, I was selling DVDs. And I basically just one day freaked out mentally, and I was like, fuck it, I quit riding my bike. And I did, but that led me into the world of affiliate marketing. So I'm very thankful that I kind of had that little meltdown because I did very well at affiliate marketing back when you could do what they called like their one-page like sniper sites, as they called them. Which is where you would target a specific term in Google, make a website dedicated around that term. It would rank highly, and you could sell products from the pages. I did that at what one would consider an obnoxious scale. At one point, I had 500 websites, and I was doing around $700 to $1,000 a day. Selling like what many would call questionable products, but I made a bunch of money quickly doing that. So I was able to kind of do that for almost a year, and I was going to try to sell the network of websites for $1 million. I mean, I had some big ambitions. Unfortunately, Google changed their algorithm, and all those websites disappeared pretty much overnight. So I was left, at square one. At this point, I was with my current fiance. We ended up breaking up, not specifically because I lost all my money, but we had, that was part of it. And then I was like, man, what do I do? What do I do? And I decided to reinvent myself as a person, found men's style and fashion, and realized that there was a gap for what many would consider, dating and style. And I have a really good mutual friend as well, Jason Capital. He was
Yep.
like, dude, let's make a product. The fashion industry, the dating industry needs help with how they dress. And I was having really good experience, like with myself, dressing well and helping other like friends dress well. So I started making YouTube videos. We created a digital product called 51 Handsome Guy Secrets and quite a few other digital products together. And then that business, took about a year, kind of started taking off again. It was a good, solid six-figure business for a while. I started making YouTube videos though, and my YouTube started taking off on the fashion front. And I did that for like 2 or 3 years. And then kind of burned out of that because, like I said, I got back together with which now is my fiance. We ended up getting back together, worked through a lot of differences and things. And then she got pregnant, and I was about to be a father of a daughter, teaching guys how to dress better to get laid. And that didn't sit well with me anymore, that I was portraying that on the internet. And not that I was against anything I ever said, because all those videos are still there. I just didn't want to continue that path. So I kind of
Right.
quit. And then I found Instagram, started making vertical videos. And shortly after that, TikTok happened. And that was right around lockdown. And before TikTok, I had a small agency doing like Gary Vee style videos, the progress bars and all that. It was doing around, because I kind of fumbled. I did well at saving some money. So like when all these drops happened, I was able to sustain myself for some time. And I've always been savvy, and I've always known how to make videos. So literally, if anything fell apart on me tomorrow, I could go cold to businesses locally, and I could survive just because of my skill
Right.
set making videos. And I did that for like this year or so gap. And then like TikTok really kind of, this is around like when Trump was talking about banning the app, and like the pandemic was just about to start. And the world was about to go into chaos, and I was like, fuck it, this TikTok thing looks like there's some legs. Let's go all in. And then like middle of lockdown, I started making videos from my bedroom because all my clients that I had prior to that canceled. At one point prior to lockdown, I think I was negative like $15,000 in my bank account
Wow.
because all my clients asked for refunds and I couldn't afford it. So they all charged me back, and it got pretty messy there. But I was able to figure out this TikTok thing. And while I was doing that, I was also DM closing for my friend Elliot Hulse. So I was able to pull myself out of that hole. And then I hired 2 people to work with me for the TikTok agency, which was basically net zero for months because nobody gave a fuck about TikTok. And then I got, my first paying client because I had taken 2 people's accounts from 0 to 100K in pretty much 30 days. One was Elliot, and the other one was my friend Chris Barnard with Overtime Athletes. And those case studies then led me to pitching other people. And I was able to get my first client at $750 a month. Her name's Adley Stump. She's a good friend of mine now. She's one of the biggest viral prank girls on Facebook and pretty much everywhere. I took her account from 0 to 1 million in 6 months. And then my account, I started making videos every day. I started getting, more views on TikTok than I'd ever gotten anywhere else. Really from the educational front, because I was very early educating on TikTok. There really wasn't there was a handful of people doing it. One was Gary Vee, it was like Jason Capital. And beyond that, I think it was like me and a few others, and I started teaching video stuff. But I wasn't really going viral until I branched out a little bit and I started talking about dating and social skills. And then I had my first viral video. I did like 5 million views, gained like 60,000 followers overnight. Then I basically said, fuck having a niche. I want to talk about whatever I feel like. And now I have, 100 million views, 18 clients, an agency that does over $1 million a year, and some of the biggest names in the world who rely on me and my team to make them videos. So there's my story.
So much to unpack there. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's start off from here, which is, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs will go through the entrepreneurial journey and they'll say, I need to just stick to one thing only, even if it's not successful. But it seems like on your path, there was a lot of things that you actually tried. You started off with doing the websites, the sniper pages, and then that stopped working. You went into filming stuff for local businesses. You did chat closing. You did all of these things. So what led to you just constantly trying multiple things? Was it just out of a place of like, fuck, I really need money and I got to just try things? Was there any points where you felt like just giving up and going, fuck it, I'm going to get a job? Like, what made you just constantly keep going and keep trying?
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, you get to a point where it's like, for me, like, I mean, I don't want to say a job wasn't an option, but it would have been harder for me to get a job than it would have been to figure out a new way to make money. And I say that because, I mean, things are a little different now. I mean, I have a full sleeve of tattoos. I have finger tattoos, like, you know, so it's like the likelihood that I'm going to easily get hired, you know, was small. And I always kind of knew that. Not because I think now it's different. I think I could get a badass job now with all my skill sets and the way that what I can portray myself as. But back then I was just like, you know what? I don't want to work for anybody, you know, so I got really good at, I would call it making money as a hobby. I would always do things to the point where they would be lucrative, but they were never really things that would sustain long. So like I have a lot of peaks and valleys, and fortunately, like, not always, but I was, you know, I was good at like sustaining, and I didn't really overextend my lifestyle at all ever. Even though I was friends with a lot of people that live some pretty fucking crazy lives, even to this day, you know, I kept it simple. Like I paid my car in cash. Like me and my fiance, like we didn't overextend on our apartments, you know. So I was always kind of like, even if it all fell apart tomorrow, I'd be okay. But for me, it was like, I always had one common skill set. And it took me like 10 years to figure out what skill set that was that could kind of take me, you know, I mean, to the point where now I can say that I've made $1 million. I'm not a millionaire yet, because there's a difference between making it and being a millionaire.
Right.
It was always video, and having a camera of some sort. And that's why I'm like, I never, like, once I kind of realized that, I was like, I'll never be jobless. Like I'll always be able to make some money, you know. And then that was kind of the thing, but it was always, you know, what really did change in that process was I stopped looking at making money as like, I need to make money, and more as like, I want to sustain something. I don't know if what I'm doing right now is going to sustain, but I want to have a more longer term mindset on that. Even if that's scary, you know, because that was the thing. Like I was only chat closing so I could sustain and build something. Like, so when I started the TikTok agency, like Luis Carrillo, I believe you met Luis. He's a, you know, a small partner in my company. Like, you know, he's a percentage of what we do. He's been with me since day one. I convinced him to move from San Diego, California to Florida to start the TikTok agency, telling him I could pay him $500 a month, you know, and thankfully Luis said yes. And he did. Part of which I think is he wanted to get the fuck out of California because it was about to get crazy. But, you know, I sold the dream a little bit, like, hey, we can do this. I have a good feeling about this, you know. And then same thing with the a girl, Savannah. She's been working with me off and on for like 7 or 8, maybe even 10 years now. She's like a little sister to me now. You know, she'd edited for me and stuff, and I brought her on. And I was starting to get clients, but I still wasn't making enough to like sustain. And, you know, but I looked at them and then I looked at, okay, I'm making like 5 to 6 grand a month or so chat closing. We're making a little bit here. So it's like, I basically put Luis and Savannah on, like, I want to say it was like a $2,500 a month salary, you know, and I was paying that through chat closing because I didn't want to, like, I saw the longer term vision. And
Got it.
you know, but that was a huge switch. That wasn't like an easy thing because like I am really good at making fast money. But fast money also goes away quickly. And that was kind of a, you know, I don't know when that shift specifically happened. Part of, I could probably say my daughter, you know, and, you know, my fiance, like I just kind of, I didn't want to be unstable anymore, you know.
Right.
So that, and I say unstable as in just that, those peaks and valleys. And I wanted to really learn how to sustain a business. And yeah, but I mean, I guess it was also to the TikTok agency, and like TikTok as a whole was the first thing that I was like, yo, like I could sustain this at least for a few years, you know, because I still don't know. You never know if it's going to change tomorrow. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. It's like it could all crumble, and then I'd be like, okay, I'll figure something else out, you know.
Right. So it's just interesting because I feel like a lot of people in your position, especially the negative 15,000, right? It's like I'm 15,000 in debt now. Most people would quit in those stages, but for you, you're like, I'm 15,000 in debt. The pandemic's here. Let me go all in on TikTok. Can you dive a little bit more into what your thought process was behind just saying I'm going to go all in on TikTok instead of just giving up and being like, shit, I'm 15,000 in that. I got to figure something else out.
Yeah, and just to break down the 15,000 so the people listening know what that is. So I had a few, I think I had like 7 to 10 local businesses, all paying anywhere between $1,000 to $2,000 a month for consistent video services. And I had delivered on all those. Like I never did it, fulfill my products. I don't believe in that. I think that that's fucked up. And I had some, I would call low budget contracts in place. And when the lockdown happened, everybody panicked, so I don't even look at them as like, they panicked. They wanted refunds because I mean, shit, who knew what was about to happen? And they all asked me for refunds, even though I had delivered on the work. And I was like, yeah, I got a little pissed off, but I had a little savings. I think I had around, I don't know, maybe like 5 to 10,000 in savings. And like, in operating, I didn't have a whole lot that I was, rolling, in the account, but like, I wasn't broke by any means, but I was not prepared to give out like $2,000 refunds,
Right.
ish, whatever. And then, I refunded like 2 or 3, and then my account, chunked in half. And I was like, I don't have any money to sustain my family, and things are about to get weird. So I basically made the decision on my own to be like, you know what, I got to take care of myself and my family right now. So I went to the bank and I pulled out what was left in my account, which was right around $5,000. And because I knew I could pay, that to me was like 2 months of expenses ish, for what I was about to have to deal with. But there was like, 3 or 4 other people that wanted refunds. And I basically just said, look, I can't refund you. I'm sorry. Like, and, I mean, that was not an easy phone call. None of them were. And they got mad and they charged me back. And for those that don't understand what a chargeback is, a chargeback is like let's say, it was like they're going to charge me back for $1,000. Well, they do the chargeback initiated with the credit card company. The credit card, basically they just rip it out of your account 24 hours later, and it goes into like an escrow. And then you have, and it's like in this like leeway area where it's like, I state my case, they state their case, and whoever the credit card or somebody decides wins. But this is like like a 3-month process. I'm sure you've experienced 1 or 2 of these in your day. So I knew that money was about to come out. That's why I went to the bank and I pulled it out, knowing my account was going to go into the negative. Because I was like, fuck it. Like I just need the cash because I need to pay rent,
Right.
So that was this thought process there. And then, so people got mad at me and they charged me back. And, when you get like when it goes into the negative that big, there's a lot more fees associated with it than if you just like overdraft $30.
Right.
So it stacked up really fast, and it was terrifying. Like I paid that all back, like, and with DM closing, ironically, because I was just depositing the checks in and basically going to zero with all my commissions for like a month and a half or so, 2 months. I'm very good at chat closing, so I want to say that like that was very easy for me to do. But yeah, like, so with that happened, I also, I was like, this TikTok thing is like, I was already seeing success, like with the case studies. I wasn't making much money, but I was like, the popularity of the app was like exploding. And then honestly, when Trump was like, I want to ban the app, like, I mean, I'm not gonna say I love everything Donald Trump, but like, I was like, if he's trying to ban it, like, it's probably pretty big. I was like, it's probably something that like, hey, that's where Hobby Ryan kind of took over. I was like, maybe I can make a lot of money real quick, but, there might be something else here. And yeah, then I also knew, because I had been online for so long, that being early to a platform is always the best thing. And I knew because I was late to YouTube with the fashion, I was late to Instagram after the YouTube because I was so focused on YouTube. I didn't grow Instagram quickly. So with TikTok, it's like I had a fresh slate and I was early. So I was like, fuck it. Like, let me get to 100,000 followers, because I also know, like, when you get 100,000 followers, like, everybody treats you differently. Like, things just change from an authoritative standpoint. And I didn't have that on any other platform. So I was like, let me get this and then like see where this goes. And, in that journey, I mean, I was also first to market on the TikTok agency because there was nobody that was doing it. Now it's like the fucking new social media marketing agency, and
Yeah.
there's 27 DMs a day, so, but I was the first. And I also, I have very good social skills and networking skills. I don't know if that was like, ingrained in me from birth. I don't know. I just never struggled like making friends and like networking with people. So when I saw like TikTok, and I was like, man, like I need to align myself with the right people right now. And thankfully there's one Facebook group called TikTok Marketing Secrets. It's run by a gentleman named Michael Sanchez. We become friends. He was offering, I think that the group had like 600 people in it when I joined, and it was like the only TikTok group. And I was like, this will be good to kind of join and align myself with. And I joined there, and like Michael was offering consulting for $100 for like a Zoom call. But when I went to the website, you could buy like multiple calls. And I was like, and I was running at the time 3 accounts. And I'm not going to say I needed help from Michael, but I was like, I should probably align myself with this guy because he has the only TikTok group, and it's probably going to be the biggest because, again, he was first to market, So I bought 3 consulting calls, but I didn't pay him for $300 in one shot. I bought 3 individual ones. And the reason for that in my thinking was he's going to see my name 3 times with money attached to it. And it worked. I did 3 consulting calls with him. First one was for Overtime Athletes, which he had already seen those videos because, again, this is early in the app. And then the second one was Elliot Hulse, and Michael knew who Elliot was and saw the videos. But then the last consulting call we did was with my account. And he was like, this is you? He's like, I show your videos to my mastermind group every week and tell people, if you don't edit videos like this guy is right now, you will be irrelevant in like 6 months. And when I started TikTok, that was another thing that I did was I was like, I'm not making videos on my phone. I'm going to edit the fuck out of these, and I'm going to make it so over the top that you can't help but notice that my videos are better than everybody else's. And I used a $2,000 camera, lens, editing software. I was spending 1 hour to 2 hours per video when people were just whipping out their phone and making dances, So again, that was to position myself early on as like, this guy knows something that I don't. And then that's where the subtitles kind of came in, like the subtitles that have gone on to become the Hermosi Reel, or whatever, I had clients. I also had my own account that was now getting a lot of views, and I started doing these obnoxious subtitles out of, again, those started because the deaf community commented on one of my videos. And I say the community because apparently I had a lot of deaf followers. I had no idea. And this is when I was like around 60,000 followers or so, ish. I think I was getting around 1 million views a month back then, maybe 2. Yeah, they commented, put subtitles on your videos. And this is like, subtitles were not happening on TikTok. Nobody had them. Like, and I was like, I have a tendency to enjoy some cocktails on my porch with my fiance. And then like sometimes she goes to bed early and I sit there and I reply to comments. Not a good pastime. But I just made one comment that apparently pissed the deaf community off pretty well. And it was, I'm
back.
Oh, we're back. Sorry. But yeah, it pissed off the deaf community to the point where, I just said, don't you guys have an app for that? And in hindsight, that was a dickhead thing to say. I didn't mean to say it in the way that it kind of came out. And I got there was 50 comments of people just mad at me. And then the next day, I deleted the video because I felt bad. And I was like, you know what? Fuck them. I'm going to make the most obnoxious subtitles ever. And July of 2020, if anybody wants to fact check this, you will not find a video with subtitles that look like what are the thing now. You can go back to my account, you'll see the first video in July of 2020 where we started doing subtitles, and I made them out of spite to make the most obnoxious subtitles ever. And I could not have predicted how crazy the subtitle thing was going to become, because in my case, I did it once and I was like, oh shit, like the watch time's higher. These work. And then we just started doing it. And then I landed my first really large client, which was Grant Cardone. We started using them on his videos. And then I landed my second really big client, which was Ryan Pineda, and we started using them on his videos, plus my videos. And then there's a third really, really big client that the world all knows and loves, which I can't speak on. We started using on his videos, and yeah, the internet broke.
Wow. So what I'm hearing here, three biggest lessons that I've gotten just from this whole speech was, look at the trends of what's going on in entrepreneurship, be the first to market. And then the last thing is, as well, as like your level of humility to just be like, you know what, I'm just going to align myself with the right people and just pay for their coaching, and just not just once, but do it 3 times, even though here's a guy who's studying my shit and telling his students to go at it like me. I'm getting advice from him. So I'm just curious, as you continue on this journey, now people are starting to edit the reels kind of like you started doing it, and there's all these, editing agencies where I'm getting, like myself, 20 DMs a day where like, do you want to do like reels and short content? What's the next trend? What's the thing that you're starting to see coming up next so that entrepreneurs can take advantage of and be that first person to market within those trends themselves?
Yeah. Just so people know, like, you can't always sometimes be first to market, so it's like, and, I'm very fortunate, like, that I, all of my skill sets and like everything I kind of like learned up until the point of TikTok starting, like, that was just it was like luck, opportunity, skill sets. And I took a lot of risk. Now it's a little different because there is reels and shorts and TikTok and Twitter short. Like, there's everything had a shorts. This was just TikTok, like, for a year. Like, and I mean, I have a lot of NDAs from clients, so it's hard for me to speak on, like, but a lot of the conversations, like, I was like selling so hard. Like, I mean, I can share, like, I have an NDA with Cardone's, but they've given me permission to kind of talk about it. But like, I was on the phone with Grant's team going, you guys need to be early. And like, I am the guy that can do that for you right now. Like, I already have editors. I'm already training people on this. And it was more, I believed in myself, and like, I took a risk on the opportunity. Now, like, would not start a short form agency now. Like, I'm going to continue to grow mine, but like, that wouldn't be where I would like focus, because there's too much competition now. You have to differentiate yourself somehow. And I don't know what that is. I know what we're focusing on, which is the problem right now with short form and educators in specific is people cannot get their point across in 60 seconds. And the entire internet the attention span is continuing to decrease, and the competition saturation is continuing to increase. So when you have low attention span, high competition, it's very hard to stand out. So with editing in particular, like, I have a group coaching now, a mastermind, if you call it, like, and it's a lot of short form agencies that, want my help. And what I did early on, kind of by accident, was I film in person with all but one of my clients. Last year, I flew 130,000 miles with American Airlines, back and forth filming, and we film 100, 200 videos over the course of 2, sometimes 3 days, with these clients. And like, when we do that, I don't script. I think people that script are fake. If you have to script anything, like, you don't know enough about your topics, and you should not be fucking talking about it. Like, now what we do with our clients is we help them with hooks and topics, and like, one of the things that like I focus all of my attention on now is not the video editing. Like the editing is like the sprinkles on a cake that hasn't even been baked yet, you know? So it's like, but what is a cake is the topic of the video and then the hook and then how it's delivered. And where the entire internet is fucking up right now is they cannot deliver a message for shit. And they're doing it around topics of videos that nobody cares about, you know? And that's like, I don't understand why the world doesn't see that. And I mean, so like many would probably call that a trend. Like, I feel like I'm on another trend, but we spend majority of our time with our clients, filming with them, coming up with topics, helping them with hooks, and then helping them just deliver that message. So I don't think the trend is like the next platform or the next, style of video. The trend is delivering your message, like, and speaking in a way that can be, comprehended in short bursts. And I think I think I speak very well. I've trained myself, and I mean, even on this, like I'm like a sprinter. So it's like and then I condense so it's not like a drawn out thing, except for my story. It's just really hard for me to say all that fast.
Right.
But and then just details and like, explaining things, and not holding anything back, I think is something that the internet is struggling with, especially educators and marketers specifically, because I work with a lot of marketers and they're like, why are my videos not getting views? And I'm like, dude, there's like, nobody cares about what you're talking about. Like only you care. Like, I mean, I happen to get a lot of real estate professionals, like, and they're, I like real estate professionals because they pay, then they understand, but I'm like, guys, like nobody knows what wholesaling houses is. Nobody knows what short-term rentals are. Nobody knows what, they buy one house, the average person. Right. I said, you're talking to people, like you're making videos for your competition to watch and then just like judge you. You're not making videos for the average American or, anybody in the world for that matter. So it's, me and my team, like we've kind of we spend so much time on topics and like, and not so much just the topic of a video, but just like, how do we take a video about like house wholesaling and explain it in a way that can go broad reach? So like that's where people, I get a what I would say a bad rap, because I'm like what I would call anti-niche. I just don't believe in niche-based content anymore. But the only reason that is because I work with the biggest people on the internet, and their only concern is views. Just put me in front of more and more people. I'll figure out how to monetize those views. Right? They're like, Ryan, I just keep making us go viral. And you can't go viral on a niche video. You can go viral teaching somebody how to make friends. You can go viral teaching them how to get a discount on their first home. You can go viral, anything that has a broad reach. That's what we focus on the most. And it's like taking niche topics and making them broad, which is, I mean, I'm not going to say, we're perfect on everything we do, but I mean, statistically, I've made, me and my team have made over 1,000 viral videos on TikTok. And when I say viral, I mean, that's 1 million views in 24 hours. Wow. And then, I mean, you could probably triple that number based on all the other platforms as well. We just don't keep track of that. I keep track of TikTok because I think TikTok is the most important platform when it comes to virality, because it is the youngest demographic and they're the gatekeepers of what the world considers cool. So if you can impress TikTok, and by impress, I mean, make a video go viral, that fucking video is going to crush everywhere else. And then my stats show that, like, I get like, anywhere from 10 to 20 million views a month on TikTok. I repost the same videos to Facebook. And I mean, right now I got like 8 million views this month on Facebook. Like Instagram, I average like 3 to 5 million views a month. YouTube Shorts is very finicky. I mean, I've had 30 million views in 1 month, and I think I average around 1 million views a month there. But it's like, the videos just work. You don't, so I think that, and it's also a unique opportunity for like creators right now, because like there's never a time where you can make one video and go viral on like 5 platforms.
It's interesting that you say that, because I had this observation from last time that we spoke. You were doing a YouTube live, and you were breaking down some of my content, and I realize that people are just lazy with their content, because I've been lazy with my content, where I tell my editor, I'm like, go on my YouTube, take my long videos, cut them down, and then we'll just post them. But the problem with that is it just doesn't get views because I didn't actually put any effort. He just took some clips and cut it down. So even recently, I'm telling my editor, I'm like, look, I'm going to sit down. Ryan told me to sit down and film this stuff instead of just cutting them down so that we can really get these views. But my biggest question to you is, you know, all marketers are saying the riches are in the niches. So how do you take broad views, right? You take all of these people who are coming in because you're talking about how to make friends, but your niche might be something completely different. How do you take those people and actually monetize those views?
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, I love the phrase riches in the niches, because that is factually true. Like, you have to be able to, you know, serve a market, you know, and serve a group of people with something. There's just, you know, when I explain this to clients and like other marketers, I look at it like this. So when a video goes viral, people don't understand what happens because most people can't fathom going viral. Like, it's just not something. It's easier for, and even an editing agency or somebody who's selling services, it's much easier for them to say, yeah, but, you know, let's not worry about getting 1 million views. Let's just worry about you getting 5,000 of the right views. And I hate that fucking term, the right views, because it doesn't exist. Like, views are people. Like, you know, and views are, you know, attention span. Views are people watching your videos from start to finish. So knowing that, like, if I did hypothetically want to reach the 5,000 right people, if I get a video that gets 1 million views, for that to even happen, 50% of all those 1 million views, so 500,000, had to watch your video start to finish. It does not go viral unless that happens. Like, so knowing that, of 500,000 people, do you think statistically there's 5,000 people in there that are probably interested in whatever you're selling? I would say hypothetically, yes. But if you're only trying to target 5,000 right people, the algorithm isn't going to show it to the right people because it's not going to show it to enough people to find the right people. Because for 5,000 views, that means that you only had 20% of those views watch the video to the end. So what's 20% of 5,000? I don't know, we'll say 400 to 600.
1,000.
Yeah. Or 1,000 people. Yeah. So my math's not always the best. So 1,000 people, you know, so now they're only going to show it to 1,000 people, whereas 500,000, I'd rather go that route. And
yeah,
you know, the more you do that, and there's also layers to content as well. There's like your broad reach stuff, you know, but yes, like if you look at my account, like I still make what many would consider niche-based videos, because I enjoy making those videos. Like, I love talking about video editing and getting views on videos. And I know we were speaking before the call, and I'm like, yeah, that shit doesn't get any views though. You know, but from that perspective, when you go viral and those 500,000 people start seeing, you know, see your video, the algorithm starts showing all of your other content to them. Now, you know, that's where the power of going viral is. It's not that one video, it's the rising of all the videos after you go viral. Because now, you know, there is statistically, there's far more than 5,000 people that may like video editing out of 500,000 people than out of 1,000. And then they're going to show those people my video editing videos. And then they're going to show the people my getting friends videos. And they're going to show this, you know, so that's the strategy. But it's nobody, like, people are just afraid to say that they or can't fathom getting 1 million views. Like, because is it easy? No. Like, is it hard? I mean, I don't think it's that hard. I think it's a skill set that needs practice and needs to be developed, you know, and like, I think I'm just the only agency, you know, or person for that matter, because like I am my agency, my face is like that. I'm like, I'm not afraid to say I can make you go viral. I can make go viral very quickly, you know. So, you know, we've had clients that their first 10 videos, you know, 3 of them have gone viral. You know, I've also worked with clients where it took 5 months to get them their first 1 million view video, you know, but unless you are getting views, your account it does not grow, because views equal followers, and then followers equal money. And the only way to get more followers is to get more views, and that's where the niche based argument comes. It's like, if you only have 10,000 followers, you're only going to make a certain amount of money. You will sell through those people and get to a point where like you have run out of people to sell to. So what do you do in that situation? Well, there's two options. One, you start buying ads to reach more people, or you go viral. That's it. And it's cheaper to go viral than to buy ads right now.
It's interesting because a lot of the marketers who are saying the riches are in the niches are not necessarily doing that. They're creating content for broad people to just get eyeballs.
That's the thing too. And it's like, what is a niche? It's like, like I said, like real estate is not a niche. It's money. It's investing.
Right.
Everybody wants money. So that's not a niche. Same thing with like personal finance. People say, oh, I'm in the finance niche. No, you're not. Like everybody has a wallet. You're in the people niche. Like, so it's like certain niches have broad appeal. Like if you're trying to, sell, a basket weaving course to single moms, like, yes, now, okay. Like, but how do you reach more people? Like if I had a business like that was niche, you don't look at the niche as you look at the people that buy your product. So so who's interested in basket weaving? Maybe it's single moms with 2 kids. Okay, what do single moms with 2 kids like? Well, I mean, if they have money, they like Golden Goose sneakers. They drive Range Rovers, Mercedes S-classes. So it's like you start making videos about what those people like, and then all of a sudden you start getting the niche views. Like it's just, you have to learn how to reach people. And it's not like, so like I would consider, interests are the new niches, and you have to make videos for specific interests to get your videos shown. And then again, you get enough views and people buy stuff from you. So it's, it's really fascinating, and I don't see this as getting, I don't see this changing, like, especially with the speed of short form and how saturated and how much people are putting out. It does get hard for me to fathom when people are like, the right views. I'm like, so annoying.
And people do this with ads too, right? When they target interests of like people.
Yeah, and even ads too. It's like, I've bought ads and I've worked with people that buy a lot of ads, and it's just like, when you get an ad that works, what do? You show it to more people. So the better ad goes viral anyways, So I'm just like, it's hard for me to like fathom when I'm like talking to people, because all my competition, like, they're like, yeah, but we make content that converts. And I'm like, does it convert? Because it got 400 fucking views. Like, like, what are you converting? Like, I make videos that get 5-10 million. Like, and of those 5 to 10 million, guess what happens? A percentage of people follow somebody long enough, they're going to buy something from you. Like, and I think that might be another trend that's changing is, and Gary Vee is really good at kind of talking about this. I don't always agree with what Gary says. And he's been a proponent of like interest and things for a long time. People want to buy from people. Like, they call it the creator economy. Like, what is a creator economy? A creator's one person. Like, it would be very hard for me right now to separate myself from my agency, like, because I'm the face, like, and the clients trust me. So it's like, if I had like a niche-based business where I was selling, maybe fitness to, single moms, I would, like, if I'm a single mom, that's my niche. I'm just a single mom. I want to talk to other single mothers. Like, it's a big niche. There's a lot of single fucking moms out there. Same thing with moms in general. They might not be single, but they're still moms, like, so it's like, it's you, the person, have to, like, you are the niche. And my niche, I have a lot of things that I can talk about, a lot of interest in things. And I think that's the difference. And that's like, even the people that, and also when I ask people, because now it's gotten to the point, like, you get 100 million views, I get recognized a lot less than people would think. I don't think people realize how much you need to get recognized to be able to walk to a gas station and get stopped for a picture. Like, I got a lot of views, and like, I might get recognized once a week from the general public. If I go to an event where it's a condensed group of people or like something, then it significantly increases. But my first thing is like, what video, like, what was the video? What's your favorite video that I've ever made? They never say the video editing videos. They always say, like, dude, I love when you were talking to the football player and you were asking him questions like do they cheat on their wives, or like, how do they, deal with that? Like, and I'm like, and then these are people that like join my group coaching and then join my mastermind, or like come see me in person, or, maybe they have a business, they want to use my agency. So it over the last year and a half, it's gone from like, the less I talk about making videos, the more money I make making videos. And I mean, you look at like the biggest creators, like I'm really good friends with Ryan Pineda. What videos, look at the videos that he has that go viral. And when you talk to people that, and I'm friends with Ryan, he tells me, he's like, yeah, they talk about my couch flipping more than they talk about the fact that I help people buy real estate. Or like, they know Grant Cardone's daughter because she's gone viral on his account like 30 times. Like, so it's like, I think we're in an age where people like, they would rather follow a singular person. And if you happen to fall into a niche at some point, then they buy from that person. But it's also too, like I have a friend of mine, his name's Ryan Fisher. He runs Chalk Performance. I was explaining this to him on his podcast, we were talking because we worked with him for a while. And I was like, Ryan, you sell a fitness program, right? I said, if somebody finds you on the internet, then they follow you, they join your fitness program. They follow your program for, let's say, a year, which is a long time to follow a singular fitness program. I'm like, after they stop following your fitness program, why should they follow you anymore? Like, and he's like, I said, they're going to continue to follow you because they like you. They like that you have a G-Wagon, or that you traded in your G-Wagon for an old school Bronco, or that you live in Newport Beach and you have a trampoline in your house, or that you have like, a girlfriend who you do fitness with. They follow you for you as a person. So they might not be on your program anymore, but they still pay attention to you. And then who knows, maybe in a year they come back to your program, but maybe they wanted to try CrossFit for a year or bodybuilding. I said, if you sell a whole, like buying a house course, they follow you, they buy your course, they buy their first house. Why do they need to follow you anymore? They follow you because they like you as a person. Now, what is more powerful? The niche-based audience, or somebody that likes you? And I use that example with Gary Vee, Elon Musk. Like Elon Musk, like, are you buying a Tesla or are you buying Elon? Like, are you on Twitter because it's Twitter, or because Elon has it now? Or, like, Elon can sell whatever the fuck Elon wants to sell because it's Elon. Like, I don't follow Tesla's account, but if I would buy a Tesla.
Give them a reason to follow, basically. It's like other than your niche.
So it's, and then, again, somebody could probably poke holes all in this, and like kind of, but I always fall back on, I am fortunate enough to where like I talk to the biggest people on the internet that are making what arguably would be the most money on the internet, beyond like Best Buy and like big box retailers. One of my clients made 25 million from his social media following last year. Like, these are people and they all ask me for the same thing. Ryan, keep getting me views, man. Like, I love it. And this also spawned from Adley. The client I said, Adley Stump, she changed my entire perspective on social media, working with her and editing her videos, because I was like, her account was doing really good. I was editing these things. I was getting her all these views, and the followers were coming in. And I would always report to her the follower growth every month. And she's like, Ryan, I don't need to see the followers. Just keep me up to date on the views from like week to week, and like, where we're at and what videos are doing well. And I was like, wait, you don't care about followers? She said, I could give two shits about followers. Like, I want views. I'm paid from views. Like, and she is unique that, she is more of an ad revenue based company. So they get ads on videos, but like, I was like, wait, you don't care about followers? She's like, no, followers just happen if I get views. I'm like, and it was like that shift that I was like, wow, maybe I'm looking at this wrong. Like, and it's hard to argue with somebody that's getting 100 million views a week. Like, I mean, at her views, I mean, they literally have singular videos that have 700 million views.
Wow.
Like, so I mean, that's where like I was mind blown on that. And I did my best to adopt that mindset to education, because she is a pure entertainer, like, which those videos get more views by nature, so.
And even our friend, mutual friend Brandon Carter, and I think you edit his videos as well.
Yeah, he's one of our
Um,
clients.
he started going just full broad with his content. Like I'm seeing his content on Instagram, and it's always just random stuff that he's like, here's a watch that you should get, and here's this what that you should do. It's like,
Yep.
and it's growing his page. It's like you could see is really blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
What are the downsides of being seen by a lot of people? I had this question when I said that I'm interviewing you. Someone said, what are the downsides of people knowing who you are and being recognized more often and getting hundreds of millions of views? What have been the downsides for you?
I mean,
if any.
Yeah, I mean, no, there are downsides. I mean, I think it's just, I don't really look at them as a downside. It's just, it is a lifestyle change. And I don't think people realize the lifestyle change that kind of when you start getting a lot of views, whether you planned for that or not, I don't think you understand what's going to come. I mean, yeah, people have an opinion of you, whether it's the right opinion or the wrong opinion, like they judge you based on the videos that are being put out. And unfortunately, like I've never experienced anything negative of anybody saying anything or coming up to me, but I could imagine Mr. Beast or somebody of his size has. Same thing with Brandon. It's people, when they recognize you, a lot of them want a picture or they want to just talk to you for a quick second. And right now I'm to the point where like I like talk to everybody. I'm like, I don't feel like I'm in a place where I can turn people away, but I mean, there has been, like I said, condensed group areas. Like, I mean, I've particularly been at the mall with my fiance and child, and people want to take a picture with me. And it's, I mean, in this case, it was funny. It was like two girls. And then my fiance comes out of a store and I'm like waiting there. And like, I have two girls that are talking to me. I could see how that would, but, so it's like, I mean, I don't consider it a downside, but you do have to kind of be on. Like there's like an on-camera personality and an off-camera personality. And there's like, unless you're getting views and making a lot of videos, I don't think people realize that that's even there. Like, yes, like I'm the same person. Like I say the same shit, but I'm a lot more amplified when I'm on like when there's a camera at me,
Right.
And I do that on purpose because I know I need to trigger people and I need to get views. And, the only way to do that is with your tonality and like your expressions. So, it does, like you always have to be on. Like I was at an event this week with Ryan Pineda in Vegas. And yes, the second I stepped foot in the hotel where the conference is, I have to be prepared to be stopped and talked to. Like, so it's like, and I was talking to my operator, Ariana, and I just made the joke. I was like, all right, I'm going to be on video all day, like, and I mean, I don't consider it a bad thing. I just think that it has to be recognized, and so that's like one thing. And then it's two is you don't always say the right thing perfectly. And that can be taken negatively or wrong on the internet. And people are trying to misconstrue your words because they want to get views off of your views, so that's where like the whole cancel culture thing comes from. And like, they can take one, somebody could take one, 10-second clip from this podcast and put it on the internet. And it could be me saying like, I don't like deaf people, or like, and it could be taken completely out of context and you just get all this hate, and again, I don't necessarily see that as bad either. Like, I know that I'm going to get that. Like the more popular you are, the more people want to ride your train,
Right.
and, so it's more, I think, just being very real with what to expect when you start getting views, let alone, and then when they happen to like recognize that this is happening. Ooh, so
My camera goes out every 30 minutes. It's
okay.
it's one of those.
Sony's got you.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then it's also the expectation of like, even with clients, like, I mean, I have to have conversations. Like some of my clients don't get as much views as I do. And they're like, Ryan, what the fuck? Why is this happening? So I'm just like, you have to have conversations there. And I also know that like, if I put something out on my page, I may have to do that for every client. So it's like, so it's, those are just ways that, if I start posting 4, 5, 6 videos a day with variations, my clients notice that they're going to want that. I don't have the manpower in place to offer that for my client, because I'm just trying things. So it's like, that, what goes on my account has to be prepared to go to everybody's account. And then also too, it's like, I know I'm being copied by a lot of people. So if I change something, I know it's going to be copied, because everybody's short form agency follows me, and they're all copying me, so these are just things that, I mean, but again, the money is great, it's awesome that I'm reaching a lot of people, like, but it's, again, I think the biggest thing to adjust to is that it's a lot of dopamine, because when you're going viral and you're getting recognized, it's like you're on top of the world, and then the following week that crashes and you're getting 50,000 views again. And your standards become so high that it's very hard to, like, you become numb. It's like watching porn, like you start innocently. And the next thing you know, you're watching some fucking crazy ass shit over the course of like 3-4 years of like watching a lot of porn. And then like all of a sudden now you have a major problem and you can't get it up anymore when you see a real woman, like, so I mean, I think that, I don't think anybody talks about that, it's like, because like, I have months where like I get 10, 15, 20 million views. And then I have another month where I'm only getting 1 million views a week. And I'm like pissed off and I'm like in a bad mood and I'm like angry at my team. And I'm like depressed to my fiance or like, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, it's a bad week is 1 million views, so it's like your standards just get so high. It's impossible. And then there's always somebody that will beat you.
Right.
Like, you can't win. Like, there will be somebody that can get more views than you. There will be somebody that can spend more money on a video. There will be somebody that is more attractive. And, it's like, so it's also like riding those dopamine waves, I think is the hardest thing.
Right. So getting compared, high expectations on yourself, high expectations from other people, getting stopped often, and potential cancel culture.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the things.
Yeah.
I got a really important question for you.
All right.
When do you start drinking Red Bull? Where'd the Red Bull come into the picture?
I am addicted to sugar-free Red Bull. So I don't like to drink calories. And Red Bull has, well, this one has 20, but it's a bigger one. So I think Red Bull is one of the most genius marketing companies in existence, because as an extreme sport athlete, as somebody who grew up riding his bike, like, you always felt like the outcast, and you like your sport was the outcast. And then you get this like energy drink company that came in and like started just, making outcasts cool, like, because I don't think people realize like what Red Bull did to the action sports industry across the board. I mean, they're a media company, which, I mean, I drink Red Bull and I own a media company. Similarities, so it's like, but I think they just marketed to me so well. And like, and I loved like what they were about, like Red Bull gives you wings. And it's like, it's all these extreme sports people doing amazing things. And, and it just became my drink. Like, they gave it away when you were younger at bike races, at extreme sports events. And it's like, they did a really good job addicting people to their drinks. And I never like, I don't know. Like, I've always liked the taste of it. I think it's the best tasting energy drink. I try to drink other ones like Celsius, which is supposed to be healthier, but it's like, and I've also never, because of like the grooming that Red Bull did as I grew up, like I never got into coffee as much. And and then it was like, I refused to drink sugar-ridden drinks. So like sugar-free was just like the natural go-to option. And then as I got older, like I turned 21 and then they marketed to me again, because what do you drink when you're 21? Like Red Bull and vodka and like all these cool shots with Red Bull in it. And it's like, so like, I feel like I've just been brainwashed my whole life to love Red Bull. And like, I just admitted I do. I just like, I don't like, it's like my favorite drink. But yeah, you know,
They pulled you in with the good hooks and content.
yeah. And then like, you know, it's, do I think it's the healthiest? No. Like, but I'm also a big believer in like, I don't think aspartame is going to be the thing that kills me, you know,
Right.
and it's like, just like, I don't like, I mirror Brandon Carter. Tap water is not going to be the death of me, you know, like, so, you know, maybe it is, maybe it will, who knows the irony of that. But I feel like there's a lot, I make a lot of really good, healthy choices in other areas. I, you know, I can drink my 1 or 2 sugar-free Red Bulls, you know, chill out on coffee. Like, you know, what people don't realize is there's not a whole lot of caffeine in Red Bull. Like, the smaller can of Red Bull only has like 70 milligrams of caffeine, or maybe it's 100 milligrams of caffeine. I forget the exact number, but a small Starbucks coffee has like 300. So like, it's worse to drink 2 coffees than it is to drink 3 Red Bulls, you know. But then there's the aspartame argument, and it's just like, I don't know, like, so that
I view Red Bull kind of the way that Mr. Beast did everything. That's like crazy stunts. Basically, that's what Red Bull did. They just pulled people in with these like insane good hook stunts, and then now you're hooked on the drink, which has nothing to do with the stunts, which is basically what you preach. It's like, go broad.
yeah, it's the lifestyle. Like, you know, I mean, Red Bull sponsored Felix Baumgartner, and he jumped out of the fucking space. You know,
I
like,
watched that.
how do I
That was
not? Like, how do I not get behind that?
right.
So,
So,
but I'm also fascinated as the company as a whole, and like, you know, I was their target demographic, and it worked, you know. So it's like, but yes, there are certain areas of my life that I'm like, man, maybe I should just chill. But it's like, I'm not ready to change that right now. So, and I'm willing to say that, like, it's like, I'm not gonna quit drinking Red Bull, sugar-free Red Bull right now. Just like I'm not gonna stop smoking cigars right now. I will limit my drinking of alcohol, because I don't care about that as much as I like cigars and sugar-free Red Bull.
I got a bunch of questions that I want to
Yeah.
ask you from the audience specifically. Here's a good one. Ace Cooper, what would be the first thing he'd recommend someone with no views or following to do to start getting instant traction?
Well, understand that there's not going to be instant traction, especially if you have a new account, or you just haven't done videos. But again, the only way to get better at making videos is to make videos. So like, when I tell anybody, even with a new client, like, we need 90 days to even be able to make a good educated decision on your account, you know. And if you're making a video, I've always been a big believer in 100. You make 100 videos, statistically, something is going to happen.
Right.
Like, I mean, and it could be you make 100 videos and none of them do well. And if that happens, okay, we have a problem. Like, maybe these topics aren't working. Maybe I'm not good on camera. Maybe, you know, there is something wrong with my account. I should start a new one. Like, you know, there's a lot of factors that go in, but there's, you know, if you consistently make videos every day, the only way to grow is to get views. So you need to make videos until you get one that gets some views. And then I think what a lot of people do when they do it wrong is they go, and then they get something with views. And then they don't even look at it anymore. And then they go back to what they were doing. And it's like, you know, the internet, and this doesn't have to be 1 million views. If you're making videos and it's like 200, 400, 500, 200, 5,000, boom, 20,000. Okay, what happened there? Why did I get 20,000? What was the topic? Did I say, was my tonality different in that video? Like, you know, maybe was I talking faster? Was I talking slower? Was there a bunch of comments? Did it get more likes? Like, the data that the app, you know, I mean, some of the apps are better than others, but the data that the apps give you, like, it tells you everything. Like, you know, and for you to get views, it means they just watched it longer. So like, where did they stop watching? Wonder why they stopped watching. So they obviously went longer. This video did better, but it still didn't go viral. So maybe, you know, and I think it's just looking at the analytics. And I mean, I can shorten the time frame for you. If your videos are doing really bad and getting 200 to 400 views, it's because your hooks are shit. It's like, people just aren't watching, you know. And we say you know, there's like 2 videos in every video, and the first video is the first 3 seconds, and the second video is 3 seconds to however long that video is. because 90%, if you're getting low views, 95% of the people are never watching past 3 seconds.
Mhm.
Like, and I, this is what I preach to my editing team. I'm like, guys, we spend in, 45 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours sometimes on these videos. And I said, like, if the video has a shitty hook, you are wasting your time editing this because nobody will see the rest of that video.
Right.
Like, and that's why, so I mean, if you're not getting views, look at the hooks. Like, and then I mean, and if the hooks are decent, do they even care about the topic? Because it literally always comes down to topic of video and hook. That's 90% of the battle. So if somebody's just starting out, like, focus on those two things. Like, what do people want to watch and how do I make them stop scrolling? And we have some like the hook is really fascinating to me. Like, and it's like because there's like 3 hooks in one. Like, and then, again, I don't know that people realize this, but we see this with the data. Like, first it's what you say, that's like hook 1. Then it's what is on the screen. Like, is there a headline there? Does it match what's being said, or does it need to not match, but continue along with what's said, because they're watching and they're listening. And then there's a third part of the hook, which is, okay, so you got them to stop. What was said from 3 to 5 seconds to keep them watching? Like, and then it's on you. You got to be able to deliver a good video at that point,
Right.
So I think that, that is the reason that people's accounts don't get views. And there's some instances where, like, you might actually be shadow banned, or you might actually have like an account that's just not good. But the beauty of like today in the world that we live in, like, people are so attached to their accounts, but like, we start new accounts all the time.
Wow.
And, I think, Andrew Tate kind of proved that you don't need an account to be everywhere. Like, and again, it goes back on, nobody cares about your followers. They only care about if they see you on the internet, and that's where views come in. I could be getting millions of views on other people's accounts. What the fuck does my account matter?
Right.
Yeah.
Second question, Elton Rodriguez says, currently, which platform is the best to start video content on? Reels, TikTok, or YouTube?
Well, the best one to start, I'm 100% advocate of TikTok. Only because you will go viral quicker on TikTok once you figure out how to make videos. And I just truly believe that TikTok it's the one that everybody copies. So all the other apps are going to behave similar to TikTok. So if you can crack the TikTok code, you can crack all the other algorithms. Now it is also very saturated and it's brutal. Like, TikTok does not care about your follower count. Like, every single video you make is an individual video. So, and I've talked to reps at the place. I'm fortunate. I have a lot of pull. I wish I had my own rep, and they literally told me TikTok holds no weight onto the followers on an account. They treat every video individually. Like, so anybody has the opportunity to get views on TikTok. Like, now, yes, there is account authority, and you can see that, like, when accounts have like 10 million followers, it's very hard for them to get a video that only gets 100,000 views or etc. But like, TikTok says, like, they want people to go viral because it keeps people on their app. So they leave it to the content, so always focus on TikTok first, but, and the other apps just kind of fall in line after that. Like, I think Instagram is the absolute hardest to go viral. Partially because I think Instagram gatekeeps. I think they throttle shit. I don't want to pick a fight with Zuckerberg, but like, I truly believe that there are, certain people and certain things you can't talk about on Instagram. I don't recommend people try to fight Mark Zuckerberg. You're not going to win. But honestly, bro, like, my favorite platform right now is Facebook.
Wow.
I get 10 million views a month on Facebook, and Facebook pays me the most of all the platforms. People don't realize that, but Facebook ads on Reels. I think I'm actually having a really good month right now. I think I'm a little over $2,000, like, which is like 2,000. Like, that's, in my opinion, that's nothing. But all I'm doing is reposting these videos. I'm not
Right.
doing anything. It's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, of effort to make an extra two, three, four, $5,000 a month. Like, so, and I really like Facebook. Yeah. But YouTube Shorts is unique. I think it's not as hard to go viral on YouTube Shorts, but YouTube Shorts definitely, like if you have a big YouTube channel, your shorts tend to do better. If you have a new account, like I posted 180 videos on YouTube Shorts before my first one went viral.
Mm.
So just think about that. Like, I mean, and I didn't realize that till after, because Luis was posting them for me. And I was like, wait, how many have I posted? Because I had one, it was like 0 and it got like 20 million views. And I was like, what the fuck? Where'd that come from? And so there's so much power in consistency, but I think like, if you focus on TikTok, obviously repost them everywhere and you're going to grow. It's just, you have to learn the art of making content and you have to try it. I mean, you spoke on this earlier, like I make YouTube videos or I do podcasts and like find the clips and put those up. I think that's just a half-ass way of fucking doing videos. It's statistically, it's much harder to go viral off clips because most clips don't have a hook. Like it's a conversation. Now the ones that do go viral usually deserve it because they are delivered very well in a conversational type of tone, which tends to perform really well on the app, but it's also the hardest to fucking replicate.
Right.
Like how do you replicate a friendly conversation? Like, so I think people should, you have to, it's different. In my opinion, it's easy to make a course or make something that you could sell to make money. That's fucking easy. The
Right.
hardest thing to do is grow a following. So it's like, and everybody wants to skip the following and go right to, let's do this to make money. And then they're like, well, I'm not making any money. It's like, well, no, because, like I'm very inspired, obviously, by Mr. Beast and kind of what he's accomplished. Like, I mean, go back and look at his old videos. For God's sakes, they're terrible. Like, but he kept making them. Like, and I just think people don't do that. Like, there's this sense of entitlement that you deserve a following because you can just go viral at will. But like, one viral video is not going to change your life. Like, it will for a week or two, but then your account goes back to zero.
Right.
You have to continually make stuff and continually, show up. And I think that, if you're not willing to make at least, 365 videos for the next year and not make any money from them, I don't think you should even be on the internet trying to make money. Like, because if you make a year's worth of videos, you're going to make money. Like something will happen, and it's like, when I started TikTok, I gave myself 90 days. I said, I'm going to make 90 videos, 90 days. And 10 videos in, I had one get 500,000 views. And, 2 years later, I grew $1 million company. So it started with me being like 90 days, so yeah. And I mean, and I posted, that was the thing. Like when I shared that stat for my views, like I posted like 1,100 videos.
Wow.
Like I will assure you out of 1,100, those all weren't good. But like when you looked at the stat, it's on my Instagram. I have it pinned just because like I like to show proof of like my views and stuff. One, it's most short form agencies they don't show what I show. And I like that because like I'm a practitioner. I do this. This is like my life. But it was like the law of averages kind of takes over. And it's like, yes, I had a lot of viral videos that equated to 100 million views, but like when you broke down the average, every single video I posted on average got 100,000 views. Now, that's not like some of my videos have like 900 views, but if you stop looking at it from here and then zoom out to here over a time frame, it's like, to quote Alex Hormozy, like it's like the law, like delayed gratification is something that, like it's real. Like if you can not sell and if you can just keep posting videos and you can keep bettering yourself, like in the skill of making content, it's like you look back in 2 years, you're like, holy shit, so that's my best advice on that.
So basically be impatient to start, but be patient with the process. Start off at TikTok because TikTok doesn't give a shit about your followers. It cares about how good the videos are. repost it on Instagram, but be careful with not
Yeah.
messing with Zuck. And then YouTube is just kind of a bonus that you just got to be consistent with.
Yeah, I think everything's I think TikTok's the main. Instagram like should be like, to me, Instagram's like my business card. It's where I'm most active. I mean, obviously we talk on Instagram, like, it's like, everybody, Instagram's my baby,
Right.
like, I take care of it, I nurture it, but I'm not putting special effort on Instagram. It's like I'm still just focusing on TikTok. And then Instagram auto posts to Facebook. As a byproduct, you make money on Facebook ads and then post it to YouTube Shorts. There are other platforms. I don't really fuck with them. I may, but again, too, once you learn the skill of creating content, it's like I could go into any platform and like just start posting consistently, and I'm probably gonna get views and then grow followers. And I use Facebook as that example. Like I don't focus on Facebook, but I get like 10 million views a month. And I have like 50,000 followers now on Facebook. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna be at 100,000 followers on Facebook probably by like 3 or 4 more months. Like I'm not trying to grow Facebook.
Right. It just all starts with Instagram. I'm gonna throw some rapid fire questions at you. This is really fun. I like to do it. 3 traits or words your friends would use to describe you.
Let's see. Impatient, ironically. Let's see. Trying to think, because I ask people that all the time. I would say, damn, I wanted it to be rapid, but I want to get good answers here. But I would say impatient. I would say like stubborn. Like I if I go all in on something, like it's all I can focus on. Like, same thing. It's like I get obsessed with certain topics and certain things, and I'm like, I just don't pull myself away. And I don't think shit. I would also think good father, and which the world doesn't really see. Obviously my friends do, like, but I really do. I feel like my life is crazy, with travel and stuff, but I try my best to be present for my daughter and my family, and obviously my fiance as well. But like, I don't show them much on my social media. So I don't feel like people see that side of me.
Love it. 3 positive traits that you feel like you're missing that you want to have.
Positive traits. Man, that's a good question. I don't know. I think sometimes I lack. I mean, I learned really quickly that I was very weak with dealing with a team. I'm a loner, like extreme sports. Like I grew up kind of like, I was an outsider. So like now I work with like closely with a team. So it's like empathy for other people. I think I might lack that, which I think is a positive trait. I tend to be very direct and abrupt. And I think like the internet has kind of amplified that in me because that gets me more views on camera. So I would say empathetic towards more people. And then also just understanding, like sometimes I just don't understand. Like, like I was at the airport yesterday and I'm like, why are people walking so slow? Like, get out of my way. Like, I got to catch my flight. Or like, why are you like, why? And I know it sounds so fucking mean, but I'm like, why are you so overweight? You can't move fast. Like, like, so I would say those things. That would probably come back to empathy.
What is your greatest fear?
I mean, like animal wise, snakes still terrify me. But I'm not afraid to like be around, like see them, because I live in Florida. We see snakes. I don't know. I guess right now, like just what my daughter would think of me, like, so I think I'm like terrified of like, I don't want her to like, not like me because of like my videos or like whatnot. So, and then there would be like just like losing it all again. Like I'm getting older now, so it's like fuck, having to continually start over. Like I don't like so I think that fear also drives the fuck out of me, which is why I'm so obsessed with things. And like, but yeah, that I've never been afraid of people not liking me. I could care less, which is what also ironically is what makes you stand out on the internet. But yeah, I think that's about it on that one.
What is one habit you're trying to get rid of and one habit you're trying to improve?
Let's see. I would probably say my sugar-free Red Bull addiction is something that I know I need to curb a little bit. I'm never going to not drink it, but I need to control it. And like drinking, like I've always identified as a degenerate partier, because like as extreme sport athletes, like that's kind of cool. One thing I have chilled out a lot with is my drinking, and like I do have a bad boy image, like because it's just like my personality, but sometimes it can be taken wrong. So I don't think that's so I try to like mitigate that. And yeah, is that the question? I forgot. I just got sidetracked there.
Yeah, one habit you're trying to get rid of, and one you're trying to improve on.
Oh, trying to improve. Just, I mean, managing a team, man. Like I know there's a lot of habits in that, but it's talking to people and like, working with different personalities. Like it's hard. Like, and it's, and I never saw myself having a company. I always just like, oh, I'll figure this out and make money on the internet, and I can maybe have one person helping me. But no, like, and I honestly, with that, I think something that's not talked about much when you start making money, but spending large amounts of money.
Yeah.
Like my expenses for my team are like $55,000 a month, which I'll never forget the day that my expenses, were partaking what I used to make in a month. And then it turned into like, now my expenses are like what I used to make in a year. And I'm spending that every month, and it's very uncomfortable. It's deserved and needed, and I don't want anybody to misconstrue that. Like, but like I was for a while paying my team, like I was the one making the payments, and I had to stop because it was like I was just critically judging everything, and it was damaging, one, to me, like and also like I didn't want that energy being put out there. But that was something that I don't think people talk about. Like as you grow a business that starts making significant revenue, like it's scary the amount of money you have to spend, and like, and then also just how much you have to save and manage, and like it's like I was working with a CPA firm, and one of the things that they said that was like kind of impactful was like, I thought I was like a loser for only having like 3 months of income in my account, and I was like, I was trying to save, and I'm like, but at the time, 3 months of income was like 40,000, like 40,000 was like 1 month of income. So it was a significant amount of money that I needed to be in there at all times. And the guy stopped me, and he's like, Brian, I can count on, we work with hundreds of clients, most with digital businesses. And I can count on one hand how many people have more than 3 months in their account. And I was like, it was kind of eye-opening. One, because you don't know the reality. Like you just assume everybody has their shit together. But that's something that I'm working on, like the spending of money. I know it sounds so odd. It's like, oh, first world problems. Ryan has a hard time spending 50 grand, but it's like, I think it is a skill set. I think it is something that needs to be developed.
I love that. What is the best morning routine that has helped you make over $1 million in under a year?
Oh, I don't have a morning routine. Partially because I have a daughter. I think there's like, I like envy people that can wake up, meditate, ice bath, have a coffee, do their fucking 10 minutes of fucking spiritual reading. I don't know. Like since I've had a daughter, it's just like, when I'm up, I'm up. I think my morning routine, like I enjoy waking up slightly earlier now. I'm not going to say I'm like, early for me is like 6:30, maybe 7. And then I like to get up before my fiance and daughter, have a few minutes of quiet time for myself. I don't do that every day though, so I'm not going to say that that's like an everyday thing. But one thing I've just been skilled at is more just like when it's time to go to work, I go to work. Like being able to just start, like I don't need meditation. I don't need to read. I don't need to feel great. It's like, I got shit to do. I got to go do it. Like, I'm just going to go do it. I do like my sugar-free Red Bull in the morning. And yeah, I mean, but now it's like I have a dog, I have a kid, like my morning is like them. And then I just need to turn the switch and then start working. So I think that's the faster I can turn my switch to start working, I think the better.
Love it. Best book you've ever read and the last book that you've ever read?
Best book by far, Dan Kennedy's best book I've ever read, Dan Kennedy's Wealth Attraction in the New Economy. I reread it a few times a year. Last book I read, Traction. I mean, it's also, I feel like books are like where you are in your life. Like, so obviously I've talked about teams and stuff. So I'm trying to read, and these are hard reads for me. These aren't like, I'm not excited to read books about this, but like, you know, I mean, but I mean, I tend to reread the same books a lot. I reference Influence a lot, with Robert Cialdini, like the Dan Kennedy book. I love that book. But yeah, like us, one of our clients is Chris Crone. He had like something called CEO Boot Camp. He got like a manual that was like, I read through that. But that came with a course. You can't just buy that, but it is a book. I mean, and I got to give credit, like Alex Hormozy, $100 million offers. Like I've read the shit out of that book. His new one, I'm going to read the shit out of that book. So, but yeah, I feel like, I'm heavily influenced by Alex, for reasons I can't discuss. You know, and I was fortunate to be able to talk to them for a long time. And he was the one that kind of put that. I said, read good books often. And like, if you can, if you have your handful, like, I don't necessarily think you always have to read new things to be successful, because I generally don't really adopt that. I'm more of a documentary. I like my videos. I'm a video guy, so it's like it's easier for me to watch videos. But there are significant, like, good books that I read often.
Love it. One animal you would pick as your spirit animal?
Oh, let's see. I'd probably say cheetah, just because if I like someone, I go at it really fast, but I can't sustain that for long, so I got to take long rests.
I like it. And if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Oh, well, considering like I would identify with Iron Man, I'd probably say just I'd want to be Iron Man. But I don't know if I'm more attracted to Iron Man or Tony Stark as a character, but I would definitely say Tony Stark. So if I need that shit in my chest, I would roll with it.
Epic. Dude, thank you so much for hopping on. I'm sure everybody who is watching this got an insane amount of value. Where can people find you? What are you up to? How can people reach out?
Yeah, no, my Instagram is, like I said, my baby. I'm on every platform, but like I answer Instagram. I answer TikTok, but Instagram's like the home. I do have a group coaching program. It's probably what many would deem as expensive. It's $12,000. I have an agency. We're pretty expensive. But for the right clients, it's like they see the value. But I mean, other than that, like I make a lot of content. I go live on YouTube. Well, I missed last week because I was traveling. So I go live every Wednesday from 9 to 11. I don't plan on missing too many of those. And that's all free. People come ask me questions. You've been on them.
Yeah.
I give away a lot of content, but if you like my video stuff, the YouTube live is probably the best place to come ask me questions. But if you just want to see me asking people random questions that most people are probably interested in and cool videos, that's where my reels and my TikTok are for.
Love it. Thanks so much for hopping on. We'll stay on the call together, but if anybody wants to reach out to Ryan, you know where to find him. He's on pretty much every platform. He's got the group coaching program. What is that, for a few months, a year? How long is that?
I just started it, so like it's new. It's the first thing I've actually ever sold other than my agency services. Yeah, we meet every week. There's it's 12,000 for 6 months. And it'll be recorded. I'm probably just gonna roll it into next year. Like I did this 6 months because I didn't know if I wanted to do it for a year, but I did the first one. I was like, yo, these people are cool. I want to stick with it. But yeah, we meet every week on Tuesday from 12 to 1 Eastern. There's going to be a live event, probably around early December, here in Florida. And the goal of the mastermind, like, it's kind of two goals. One being, teaching people how to consistently get millions of views on their videos, and all my process behind that. And then the second is, if you have a short form agency or an agency as a whole that does content, like I'm kind of an expert in that. I don't only want it to center around that, because I'm a very big believer in just making good videos. And if you make good videos and you're a creator, you're going to get millions of views and you're going to make money. And if you make good videos for other people, you're going to make a lot of money and have an agency. So I think they both go hand in hand. But for me, it's like, I just want to teach people how to I'm very abundant in the thing. I think anybody can go viral. There's lots of things you can talk about to go viral. And I'm also obsessed with making videos that go viral. So probably a personality trait that's uncontrollable, but it's all I think about because my life
Love that.
revolves around it.
Love that. Guys, go follow Ryan. Thank you so much for hopping on, brother.
No problem. And thank you.
Take care, guys.